As the Bedlam baseball brothers both need sweeps, evidently the top linebackers in the country are with our brothers down the road. I don't think so.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things cowboy and cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more by getting in on the action. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon for you to get started today. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation of football on 3 Sports for, some of the good stuff and some of the bad stuff they do. They did, in fact, put out a publication of the top 10 linebacker rooms in the United States of America. And, of course, Oklahoma State is there. But what was more surprising to me was the fact that OU was also there. This is not to say that OU doesn't have talent. Of course they do, right? Everybody knows Danny Stutsman, but everybody also wants to pretend that Danny Stutsman and Nick Martin are the same player. People want to pretend that Danny Stutsman is on the same level as Nick Martin. Statistically, that's not accurate. We've had several conversations in regards to how many categories Nick Martin was better than Danny Stutsman in and how many departments Danny Stutsman was better than Nick Martin in. And that being one department, that Danny Stutsman was better than Nick Martin. And I think that was forced fumbles or fumbles recovery, one of the two. Every other statistical category you can find, Nick Martin does significantly better than Danny Stutsman. And then when you look at the top linebackers at Oklahoma State compared to the top linebackers at OU, it's maybe the secondary options that need to be discussed. And this is not a knock on Jaren Kanak. I think he's a very, very good athlete. He's got phenomenal size, like Kendal Daniels level size, to play the linebacker position. But he also doesn't have the greatest eye discipline. He seems to guess a decent amount, which is why he doesn't have the same capabilities that Collin Oliver has. Collin Oliver, we don't need to go over the numbers and statistics. We just need to know that he's an All-American. Jaren Kanak is not. And then if you want to go deeper down the rabbit hole, the linebacker position, Oklahoma State comparisons, if you go for that number 3 linebacker spot, right, that, they designate as like a cheetah, it would either be Oklahoma State's Lyrik Rawls or Oklahoma State's Trey Rucker. And when you look at anybody from OU's roster, they brought a guy up from NEO that I think is actually going to be pretty daggone good. But until he gets there, the only comparison you're going to have is Dasan McCullough. If you're talking about Dasan McCullough from his time in Indiana to his time at Oklahoma, I think he has 78 tackles. And just Trey Rucker by himself has 113 tackles in his career. So if you go number 1 versus number 1, it's not really that close. Nick Martin versus Danny Stutsman, Nick Martin wins that battle. If you go linebacker number 2, Collin Oliver versus Jaren Kanak, again, it's not really all that close. The only thing Kanak has on maybe some size, at that position. And then if you go for the number 3 pseudo linebacker spot, whether you go with the Lyrik Rawls or Trey Rucker, both of those gentlemen are going to be better than OU's people they have coming in. It would take a monumental effort from OU linebacker room to surpass Oklahoma State. And here's what I think is going to be the biggest determining factor between the two is you have to have the guys on the defensive line to get it done. But you also have to have a defensive coordinator creative and innovative enough to make some stuff happen. For all of the marbles that I do think that Brett Venables carries at the linebacker spot, I don't think it's the same as what we're going to be able to do with our safety room, right? That could be the biggest benefit to Oklahoma State here as opposed to OU. I mean, Billy Bowman, he's a good interceptions guy. Our interception guy would obviously be Cameron Apps. But the new role we're going to be having out of Kendal Daniels squashes all of this. Regardless of who you are looking at the linebacker position between OU and Oklahoma State, whenever you take into consideration the other positions that should be meaningful and beneficial, you're talking about defensive line, you're talking about safety. OU probably has the edge on defensive line, but clearly Oklahoma State has the edge at safety. Therefore, the way we're going to be able to use our safeties will be able to catapult some of the numbers for the linebackers and vice versa. That is the reason being that it's cute that people want to continue to prop up OU's linebacker room, but it's just not the same. And the season should be able to validate that very thing. I think Danny Stutsman's really, really good. He's just not Nick Martin. I think Jaren Kanak is athletically, right, in the mold of a Kendal Daniels, but he's not. Kendal is also an All-American that is 250 pounds. That's why. From linebacker to linebacker, and you could even go Justin Wright. There's nobody on OU's roster that is comparable to Justin Wright, right? This is the same dude that had almost 220 some odd tackles in just 2 seasons, right down the daggone road with the team we get to play this upcoming season in Tulsa. So any of the linebackers that you compare to OU's roster would not start over the guys in Stillwater. It's just Danny Stutsman wouldn't start over Nick Martin. I don't think that Danny Stutsman would start over Collin Oliver. It's just the lay of the land. It's where we are. So kudos to On3 for accurately putting Oklahoma State where they belong on this list. Also, kudos, I guess. I mean, you got to prop up the SEC in a multitude of ways, and this might just be the latest one. Speaking of the latest and the greatest, that's FanDuel, right? That hasn't changed. And right now, because NHL season is in full swing, of course, you've also got this NBA season full of pea and vinegar, I guess you could say. As a Thunder fan, you do have reasons to be excited and concerned all at the same time. But it's winner take all time. Have your next shot be the biggest win of all with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That is any winning $5 bet, and you get $150 back. You can spend on money lines, point spreads, player props, over, unders, and more. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today. Make every playoff shot count with FanDuel, because it is America's number one sportsbook, even though I can't always speak English. All right, so I saw this one floating around on the good old socials over the weekend, so I figured I would chime in here. And this is in regards to maybe the easiest game, maybe the worst game, and then what would be the trap game. And when you think of the Oklahoma State schedule this coming season, it's not murderer's row, right? But there is some games that are going to be very difficult. Now, as far as the easiest or best case win, I got Baylor here. This isn't just because of my amount of animosity I have for the fan base and the lack of support for Baylor. They weren't very aggressive in the transfer portal. They are a team that had a pretty bad season, returning most of their guys from a pretty bad season, that had some, attrition in the transfer portal, but didn't bring anybody in. It's going to be somewhat reminiscent of BYU. Now, when it comes to a trap game, that's going to be most everybody's popular pick is going to be BYU. I went a little bit of a different direction. The reason being is because of the scheduling. All right. Worst. I think the hardest game is probably Utah, just because it's that early in the season. Although I do think that we are pound for pound better than Utah. I think there's not a lot of positions on the field that you could say Utah is going to have an advantage over Oklahoma State. The one I'm picking is K-State. Because even when K-State is just, quote unquote average, we always have a hard time with K-State. The two teams could be dead even, and it'll be an overtime style game. Or the two teams could be completely opposite, and it still be a wild, wacky game. The drubbing that we took a couple years ago in Manhattan, that doesn't happen. And then the way that we bounced back and got the dub last season, this is going to be a good test for both universities. And it's early enough in the season that it should kind of define the trajectory for, where we're headed. And then for the trap game, I did go with Colorado. I Provo, bucket list. All right. I'm pumped. I cannot wait. And if they're good and the crowd, gets into it, this is definitely a trap game because they have the ability to be good. And we haven't experienced a game in Provo. Therefore, I get it. But I picked Colorado because it's the last game of the season. It's on a random Friday night right after Thanksgiving. So people's travel plans are already kind of weird and wonky. The travel plans for the team is a little bit different. The Thanksgiving festivities and everything on the road, it's a little bit different. It gets you out of your comfort zone. And it's right after Colorado takes on KU. This is a KU squad that should be an 8, 9, 10 win club by the time that they play this game. So if Colorado just so happens to get a W against KU right before the Thanksgiving Friday night game against us, they could be riding a big wave. And, at the last game of the season, injuries are going to be pretty even. It just depends on what positions, what stars, what guys go down. So they could be riding a high. Meanwhile, it sets up kind of weird. So easiest game, right? My best pick is going to be Baylor. The worst case scenario, I think, is going to be K-State. You could go back and forth between them and Utah. But just to rub some salt in the Utah wounds occasionally, it makes sense to go with K-State, right? We have a history. We understand what that matchup means, and we understand how good they're going to be this year. And playing in Manhattan is difficult for anybody at any time. And the trap game being Colorado, just weird Friday after Thanksgiving. Short week. They're fresh off of a big kind of reemergence of a rivalry game. Colorado is not going to expect to lose to KU, even though KU is a better football team. So there's going to be some animosity and stuff kind of mixed in there as well. Let's shift a little bit here. So the other day we had a conversation in regards to baseball, and it would take a monumental feat of craziness for us to catapult ourselves back into the race for the regular season title. Well, nothing catastrophic or monumental happened, right? Mother Nature took down Texas Tech the last game of the series where we really needed a sweep there. But Mother Nature also, caused a lot of baseball to be kind of shifted and changed over the course of the week altogether. And here we are looking at a sweep, okay? We have to have a sweep of Houston. Meanwhile, Bearcat, be a Bearcat fan. We need Cincy to sweep OU. If Cincy sweeps OU and we sweep Houston, there we go. There's our peak of opportunity, the light that can be shown through just a little bit to crack the door open enough to maybe give us a regular season title. I still definitely think that the preparation for the postseason is going to be the biggest thing here because that's kind of been our Achilles heel. We've won Big 12 titles. We won Big 12 postseason tournament titles and then didn't turn either of those into anything, big when it came to regional, super regional, so on and so forth. So I really, honestly, at this point in time, I'm just concerned about the regional, win the regional, get to a super regional. Hopefully, you just don't put yourself anywhere, behind the 8 ball as far as maybe hosting, which I think we definitely still host. Now, if you sweep Houston and Cincinnati sweeps OU, it does make this conversation a lot more exciting and enticing. But worst case scenario, we're going to should be able to hang on to the 2 seed going into the tournament. And if OU is the 1 seed, whatever, it sets up for something that we're all going to be pretty pumped about. We are better than OU this season in baseball. Situationally, they do some really cool stuff. They have some implementation of different guys in their lineups. That work pretty well, but they don't have the staff that we have. So if Rob Walton, right, channels the old school triple OG version of himself, we have the staff to win the tournament. We have the staff to win a regional. And we offensively we can compete with anybody. It's frustrating to kind of live or die on the long ball, because if you're dying, then you ain't winning. But when you're living, it's kind of fun. And the biggest benefit, all right, maybe the only massive benefit to being a hardcore homer squad is you're never really out of the game. You know what I mean? I mean, you could go hitless for 7, 8 innings, and it doesn't matter, because all you need is a couple base runners, couple hits, couple bombs, and it's a completely different game. And that's kind of been OSU's MO this season, which does give me some hope and some faith in the fact that we do have the guys and the horses to make a deep run. Some of the other stuff, right? The manipulation of the staff and how to kind of shuffle around the lineup. Those are the things that are going to make the difference. All right, and making a difference. Golf. Congratulations on the Cowboys making another NCAA tournament field, which will be the 75th time the Oklahoma State Golf has made it to the tournament field out of 77 attempts. So 77 years, 75 times we've at least made it this far. Now, to pick on OU a little bit more, OU is ahead of us in golf, and they have been for a few years. Let's just keep it real, 3 years maybe. That's so frustrating, because traditionally Oklahoma State is a wrestling and golf school, right? We have 34 national titles in wrestling. We have 11 national titles in golf. So much like wrestling, the expectation in golf is to win a big, or at least compete for a national title. We do expect national titles in golf, but, top 2, top 3. Same with wrestling. Getting 5th place, 7th place, 8th place in wrestling is not kosher, which is why we've made this monumental move of, John Smith retiring and bringing in David Taylor. Golf got to be the same. I mean, sorry, Alan, but there's lofty things. You have to live up to the expectations, and the expectations for Oklahoma State golf is to not only be good, but be national championship level good. We're licking our wounds because of tennis, and I know that the injury was, a big blow, but it was early enough that we still had ample opportunities to come back on Tennessee. Anyways, I'm licking my wounds here over the tennis thing. Baseball, I'm honestly just kind of prepared for this to carry us into the postseason. And as long as we have a successful postseason, I'm okay with it. Golf, congratulations on making the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. There's only a certain select number of teams that do, in fact, make it. Number 75 out of 77, right? Statistically, that's a pretty good margin, but it doesn't change the fact that the expectations are massive. And we expect massive things out of golf. Do we expect a national title this season? No, because this season hasn't been like some of the seasons in the past where you've had a Matt Wolff or a Victor Hovland. It's not exactly that roster. But you still have to uphold what Oklahoma State is, or Chad Weiberg might need to be shopping here for too long. I know we just did a lot of shopping in basketball. Anyway, make sure you go find an OU friend of yours and remind them that Danny Stutsman does not compare to Nick Martin. Also, let them know that Jaren Kanak doesn't compare to Collin Oliver, nor does anybody else they have compared to Justin Wright or Trey Rucker or Lyrik Rawls. All right? That's fun. I appreciate you being patient, as you can probably tell. I'm working with some more internet type of fun stuff, but it's okay. We'll survive. And I appreciate you hopping in here to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. I think that's all we're going to have. I love you. God bless. As always, go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in. If you like it, like the daggone thing. If you dislike it, because that's okay too. Most importantly, share, comment, subscribe. My podcast, some people out there, You are the bread, the butter, the bricks, the foundation. You know what to do. Leave the reviews. Hit the stars. Later, my taters.